එක්සෙල් නම් භාගයයි මාසයකට වඩා රිදිසෝතයි.
Tonight, don't wait. As COVID-19 cases continue to rise, health authorities ramp up home treatment with a new improved system and urge the public to get on board.
Before deciding on home care management, you need to contact hospital staff, provide the necessary information and get registered.
Maintaining the status quo, the central bank announces a tightening of its monetary policy stance and promises action on excessive forex-related rates.
At the same time, measures will be taken to regulate excessive interest rate offered on foreign currency deposits.
All mixed up, the UK's first Buddhist chaplain to the military says he is shocked by Sri Lankan politicians' confusion on militarization issue.
The military is the hands and legs of a nation in crisis. They got to play their role, and I'm a bit shocked that some political leaders is critical of this.
For whom the bells toll, the Catholic Church announces a silent protest next Monday against government inaction on the Easter Sunday attack probe. All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 19th of August 2021.
ඒ කියන්නේ ලයිෆ් බෝයි අවස්ථා 10කදී ලෙඩ රෝග 10කට හේතු වන වෛරස් ඇතුළු විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරනවා කියලා.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. The eyes of the world are very much glued on Afghanistan, with many nations closely following the country's developments. US President Joe Biden has assured that he will keep US soldiers in Afghanistan until every American is evacuated, even if that means going beyond his August 31 deadline. Meanwhile, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani has vowed to return to the country in his first video address since fleeing the country. Since the Taliban took control of the Afghan capital Kabul on Sunday, Western countries have been scrambling to airlift their citizens, Afghan staff and their families out of the country. US President Joe Biden has come under fierce criticism for his handling of the withdrawal, which in recent days has been dominated by scenes of chaos in and around the Kabul airport, with people desperately trying to get out of the country. Biden replied to the criticism, saying problems were inevitable in ending the 20-year US involvement there.
No mistakes?
No, I don't think it could have been handled in a way that we're going to go back in hindsight and look, but the idea that somehow there's a way to have gotten out without chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens.
Furthermore, Biden said he will keep US soldiers in Afghanistan until every American is evacuated.
Does that mean troops will stay beyond August 31st if necessary?
It depends on where we are and whether we can ramp these numbers up to 5,000 to 7,000 a day coming out. If that's the case, they'll all be out.
Taliban leaders have in recent days repeatedly vowed not to seek revenge against their opponents. However, the US said yesterday that the Taliban were reneging on pledges to allow Afghans who worked with the US and its allies out of the country. Meanwhile, Taliban fighters have opened fire at protesters yesterday who attempted to take down the group's banner and replace it with the country's national flag, fueling fears among the nation about how the insurgents would govern the country. Reportedly, 3 people have been killed after shots were fired at them. What's more, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, who fled the country leaving it at the mercy of the Taliban, has vowed to return to the country. In his first video address since he fled Afghanistan, President Ashraf Ghani said he had left the country to avoid a lynching by the Taliban. Meanwhile, former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has urged the government to not be in a hurry to recognize the new Taliban government in Afghanistan. The UNP leader also urged the government to close down its embassy in Kabul and evacuate all its diplomatic staff, while cautioning that any recognition of the group would only serve to allow terror groups to rear their heads once again in the region.
මේ කොරානයේ වැරදි අර්ථකථනයක් උඩ ලෝකයේ තියෙන ආණ්ඩු වලටත් ජනතාවටත් පහර ගහන එක අපි කාටවත් අනුමත කරන්න බෑ. මේකේ තර්ජනය සම්ප්‍රදායික මුස්ලිම් රාජ්‍ය වලටත් එනවා අනික් රටවල් වලටත් ලැබෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මේ අවස්ථාවේදී අපි මේ ගැන විශේෂ අවධානයක් යොමු කර යුතුයි. තාලිබාන් පාලනය පිළිගැනීමට අපේ යුතුයකමක් නැහැ. ඒ නිසා සාමාන්‍ය තත්වයක් ඇති වෙලා ත්‍රස්තවාදී කණ්ඩායම් නොතියනවා නම් පමණක් අපිට මේ පාලනය ආණ්ඩුවේ හැටියට පිළිගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ එක්කම අපි දැනට කබුල් නගරයේ තියෙන තානාපති කාර්යාලය එතනින් ඉවත් කර යුතුයි. ඒ නිසා රජය දැනට තාලිබාන් පාලනය පිළි නොගෙන අනාගතයේ දිහා බලලා තීරණයක් අරගත යුතුයි කියන එක මගේ අදහස. මේ තර්ජනය ගැන අපි දැන් අවධානය යොමු කරලා ක්‍රියා කර යුතුයි කියලා මම කියන්න කැමතියි. නැත්නම් අපි මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ බාමියන් බුද්ධ ප්‍රතිමාව නැති කරපු මේ තාලිබාන් සංවිධානය පිළිගන්න ගිහින් මේ කලාපයෙන් නැති කරපු ත්‍රස්තවාදය යලිත් ඇති කරගන්න පුළුවන්.
The director of the National Catholic Centre for Social Communications, Father Cyril Garmini Fernando, announced a silent protest on Monday, the 23rd of this month, over inaction by the government to conclude the Easter Sunday investigations and bring charges against everyone cited by the Easter Attacks Commission. The Catholic clergyman also accused the government of showing no interest in getting to the bottom of the matter, despite the attacks having taken place under a previous administration. On Monday, all Catholic churches will ring their bells at 8:45 a.m., the exact time the attacks took place, while all Catholics have been requested to display black flags at their homes and businesses.
පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයේදීත් මේ මිනිස්සු මිය යන්නේ කිසිම දේශපාලනික හේතුවක් නිසා නෙමෙයි. Tamanගේ වගකීම් හරිහැටි නොකිරීම නිසා මේ තරම් විශාල ඝාතන සංඛ්‍යාවකට ඉඩකඩ සපයපු රාජ්‍ය නිලධාරීන්, දේශපාලකයන්, උසස් පොලිස් නිලධාරීන් රාශියක් ගැන පාස්කු විමර්ශන කොමිෂන් සභාව නිර්දේශ ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙනවා මොනවද ඒ වෙනුවෙන් කර යුත්තේ කියලා. එතකොට ඒ කටයුත්ත තාම සිදු වෙලා නැහැ. අද පවතින රජයේ වගකීම තමයි මේ සාධාරණත්වය ඉෂ්ට කරලා දෙන එක. මොකද පහුගිය රජයේ කාලේ තමයි මේ අපරාධය සිද්ධ වුණේ. එහෙමනම් මේ රජයට ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙන්න බෑ. මේක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම හොයලා ඇත්ත ප්‍රකාශ කරන්න. පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරය හා සම්බන්ධව මේ මිනිසුන්ගේ වේදනාවට රජය සංවේදී නැහැ. පාස්කු කොමිෂන් සභාවේ හිටියේ නීතිය සම්බන්ධ උපරිම දැනුමක් තියෙන විනිශ්චයකාරවරු පිරිසක්. මේක රජය පෙරලන්න නෙමෙයි, රජය අයින් කරන්න නෙමෙයි. නමුත් රජය නිවැරදි කරගන්න අවශ්‍යයි. ඉතින් අපි මේ 21 වෙනිදා උදේ 8:45ට ඒ තමයි එදා බෝම්බය පුපුරා ගිය වෙලාව සියලුම දේවස්ථානවල සීනු නාද කරනවා. 8:45 ඉඳන් 9:45 වෙනකන් කිතුණු දේවස්ථානවල අපි යාඥා මෙහෙයක් කරනවා. ජනතාවට එන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. නමුත් පියතුමන්ලත් හැම දේවස්ථානයකම මේ යාඥා මෙහෙය කරනවා. අපි පොදුවේ ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා කාරණා දෙකක්. ඔබේ නිවෙස්වල කළු කොඩියක් ඔසවන්නට කියලා. 21 වෙනිදා දවසේ වෙනද ප්‍රජාවගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා ඔබේ වෙනද ව්‍යාපාරය කඩය සාප්පුව වහලා මේකට එකතු වෙන්නට කියලා.
The first Buddhist chaplain to the British Armed Forces and the UK's Ministry of Defence, Professor Sunil Kariyakaravana, says that the military's role in times of turmoil should not be confused with militarization. Speaking to Indivari Amuwatta on our Current Affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24, Professor Kariyakaravana was critical about what he termed the immature behaviour of the politicians during such difficult times, adding that the country must stand united. Our viewers can watch the repeat of the full discussion at 1 p.m. on Monday once again on AdaDerana 24.
military involvement in various matters of state. Here in Sri Lanka, we see that the military is involved in many matters of day-to-day life when it comes to helping the civilian population. The question of whether the military is too involved in too much of things.
The military is the hands and legs of a nation. And when a nation is in crisis, they go to play their role and they do a great job, and their discipline is absolutely essential in times of crisis. And I'm a bit shocked that some political leaders in this country is critical of this.
The question of militarization. At the UNHRC, when they talk about Sri Lanka, the involvement of the military, we talk about the imposition of a sense of fear among civilians due to the presence of military. How do you observe this situation in Sri Lanka?
What do you really mean by militarization? Military has about 28 different roles and tasks to perform, and humanitarian is a major one. When the Ebola broke out in Africa, the British forces just went there and helped, supported, and was that a militarization of a country? No. So that should not be misunderstood and misrepresented as militarization. It looks like that we are conflating and confusing these concepts and taking it too far, and also for our own political ends, in my view. On the contrary, what we really need is to come together. In Sri Lanka, I am a bit surprised that the political leaders have not achieved that level of maturity. Let's be little bit more grown up and handle a crisis situation.
Are you implying that it is only the military that is capable of showing leadership, and the political leadership in fact is immature?
I'm saying that the political leadership should really understand the resources of a nation. The military should be really used properly in times of crisis.
More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
Big 3.
Welcome back. In more news, Sri Lankan health authorities introduced a new system today whereby COVID-infected patients would be directed to home care or treatment facilities after submitting details of their condition via SMS or by phone call to the hotline 1904. However, the Ministry of Health urged the general public to avoid attempting to self-diagnose their conditions and instead get themselves registered through the new system where they can consult with trained medical experts.
Earlier this month, health officials took measures to direct asymptomatic COVID patients without comorbidities to undergo quarantine at home. The move was introduced in a bid to reduce the strain to the healthcare system resulting from the rising influx of COVID patients in the excess of 3,000 per day. In addition to this, a new procedure to diagnose as to whether COVID-infected patients in the Western Province should be directed to treatment centres or home-based care was launched today. On this, the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 states that the new system will be implemented via SMS or through phone call registrations. Accordingly, COVID-infected patients are urged to submit information such as their present condition, age, national identity card number and address to the hotline 1904. As such, the patients are also expected to specify their condition based on 3 criteria, which are A. Patients with respiratory disease, B. Patients with fever, and C. Patients without any symptoms. Further, once information has been sent to the operations centre, medical teams would be notified and will contact the patients. However, Dr. Hemantha Herath of the Ministry of Health today urged the public to not attempt to self-diagnose, but rather seek professional medical advice.
This system has developed in a manner when somebody gets infected or the medical person needs to assess the person and decide whether this person is fit to be managed at home. So therefore, it is extremely important that before deciding on home care management, you need to contact the either hospital medical or hospital staff or field health staff and provide the necessary information and get yourself registered into the system. They will register you only if you are fit to be included into this system. So you should not have any other health conditions that might deteriorate at any time, and also the home conditions should be conducive of managing yourself at home, which need to be assessed by the field health staff.
In the meantime, Dr. Herath also addressed concerns that were raised regarding healthcare workers contracting the virus, saying that the numbers testing positive are significantly low. He stated that certain health staff had contracted the virus due to the flaws in the system implemented by such personnel at the respective healthcare centers or hospitals. Meanwhile, fatalities are also on the rise. Yesterday, the epidemiology unit confirmed 170 deaths from the virus. As such, according to the Worldometer, the country stands in at number 8 in the list of countries reporting the highest number of deaths, with 8 deaths reported per 1 million people. On developments on the vaccine front, so far 12,019,193 people have been inoculated with at least one dose, while 5,124,185 have been fully immunized. Yesterday, 164,298 vaccinations had been carried across the island.
The guidelines issued by Director General of Health Services Dr. Asela Gunawardena yesterday, stating that all shopping malls will be closed until the 31st of this month, was revised today. As such, all shopping malls can operate normally with a maximum capacity of 25% of their customer capacity at the premises and should display the number of customers that can enter the premises outside.
Taking the country's current COVID situation into account, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, amended guidelines that was issued yesterday with regard to the permitted level of function for shopping malls. Accordingly, shopping malls are allowed to operate with a maximum of 25% of the total number of customers that can be accommodated in the space available at a given time. In addition, the maximum number of customers permitted to enter the establishment should be displayed outside. However, the guidelines issued yesterday had stated that shopping malls would remain closed until the 31st of August. Meanwhile, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, revised the guidelines that had been issued for travellers arriving from overseas during the pandemic. The Director General said that the former circulars issued on the 11th of this month and the 7th of July have been revoked. According to the new circular, Sri Lankan citizens or dual citizens entering the country don't need to get approval from the Foreign Ministry of the Civil Aviation Authority of Sri Lanka to enter. They are able to request for a quarantine hotel, government quarantine centre after arriving in Sri Lanka at the airport. Travellers including foreign nationals, Sri Lankan nationals and dual citizens travelling via Sri Lanka tourism should obtain travel authorisation using protocols stipulated on their website www.srilanka.travel. All travellers 2 years and older arriving in the country should carry a mandatory negative COVID PCR test report in English, performed 72 hours prior to boarding the flight. Meanwhile, the circular also states that travellers who have received the recommended doses of COVID vaccine should carry their vaccine card or certificate or a verifiable evidence of vaccination. Further, tourists will be considered fully vaccinated only if they have departed the country 2 weeks after receiving the recommended number of jabs. Foreign visitors are also urged to follow the health and safety guidelines once they land in the country at all times, as vaccinated people could contract the virus. The Director General of Health Services had also stated that each traveller must submit a completed health declaration form to the staff at the airport health office.
The Old Ceylon Bakery Owners Association has announced a hike in the price of bread and other bakery goods following a crisis meeting today to discuss the rising price of raw materials. With bread set to go up in price by 5 rupees from next Monday, the association has urged the government to provide them with immediate relief. However, State Minister for Consumer Protection Lasantha Alagewanna says that his ministry is yet to be informed officially of the association's decision.
A crisis meeting was called for by the Old Ceylon Bakery Owners Association to discuss the issues they face due to rising prices of raw materials. At the meeting, the association's members reached a consensus to raise the prices of bread and other bakery products from Monday the 23rd of August. With that being the case, a loaf of bread is set to increase by 5 rupees, all other bakery products such as buns by 10 rupees and a kilogram of cake by 100 rupees.
අද වෙන විට බේගිරි නිෂ්පාදනය දාගන්නා සියලුම අමුද්‍රව්‍යවල මිල ඉහළ ගිහිල්ලා තිනවා. රටේ සීනි කිලෝ ලංකාවේ ඉතිහාසයේ ප්‍රථම වතාවට රුපියල් 175යි තොග මිල අද කොළඹ. පොල් තෙල්, පාම් ඔයිල්, මාගරින්, බටර්, එතකොට ඊස් සියලුම දේවල්, සේවක පඩි නඩි සියලුම දේවල් වැඩි විතර ගෙවන්න සිද්ධ වෙලා තිනවා. අපිට කරන්න දෙයක්වත් නැහැ. අපිට මේවා කරගෙන යන්නත් බෑ. අපි මෙච්චර කාලයක් බලාගෙන හිටිය යදෙන් සම්කිසි සාහනයක් ලැබෙයි කියලා. නමුත් අද තාවෙන කිසිම සාහනයක් අපිට ලැබිලා නැහැ. ඉල්ලා රජයෙන් මේ පිළිබඳව ඉක්මන් පියවරක් අරගෙන ඉක්මනින් ප්‍රතිචාර දක්වන්න කියලා අපට.
when reached out for comment on the price hike. However, State Minister of Consumer Protection Lasantha Alagiyawanna revealed that the All Ceylon Bakery Owners Association had not communicated such a decision to his ministry as yet.
Welcome back in your business news. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka at its meeting held yesterday decided to increase the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate by 50 basis points each to 5% and 6% respectively. In addition, the Monetary Board decided to increase the statutory reserve ratio applicable on all rupee deposit liabilities of licensed commercial banks by 2 percentage points to 4% with effect from the reserve maintenance period commencing on the 1st of September 2021. Speaking at the Monetary Policy Media Briefing this morning, Central Bank Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman stated that despite the many macroeconomic imbalances faced by the country, growth is tipped to be 5% this year.
Addressing the Monetary Policy Media Briefing this morning, Central Bank Governor Professor W.D. Lakshman says that the economy is on track to record a 5% growth for 2021 due to the many fiscal and monetary stimulus measures introduced from the beginning of the pandemic. Professor Lakshman added that macroeconomic imbalances have been exacerbated by weak external conditions and some deviations from official and informal exchange rates.
These two measures are expected to result in some increase in market, deposit and lending rates. At the same time, measures will be taken to regulate excessive interest rates offered on foreign currency deposits. Accordingly, the anomaly between domestic and foreign currency interest rates will be corrected to a great extent, prompting an adjustment in the external trade balance as well as demand and supply conditions in the foreign currency market. The Monetary Board emphasizes that action will be taken to prevent high interest rate regime that was in place until 2019 re-emerging with full commitment. With these adjustments, the Monetary Board expects the economy to move along a more stable growth path with greater stability in the external sector of the economy. Higher deposit rates are also expected to induce a return of the large volume of currency in circulation back into the banking sector.
In the meantime, questioned regarding his mentioning of a reduction in what he termed remittances entering the country through formal methods in the past couple of months, Professor Lakshman revealed that this may not indicate that less dollars are being sent into the country, but that people are resorting to other methods that remain under the radar.
You mentioned earlier during your address that there will be a reduction in remittances through formal methods. Does this mean that remittances are coming in through more informal routes, and does the central bank have any plans in place to either regulate or curb these routes?
Over the last couple of months, there is a distinct decline in the amount of remittances compared month to month as well as from year to year. So we suspect this is not a genuine decline in the remittances into Sri Lanka, but we think that this may be a change in the form in which the remittances are sent to family members and all that. This happens in not only remittances. We also know that this is happening in some export sectors like gems and jewelry. This has been a perennial issue in Sri Lanka.
In addition, with reports of certain banks in Sri Lanka having hiked up their exchange rate fees on overseas credit card transactions, Central Bank Deputy Governor Yvette Fernando promised to take up the issue with the banks in question through the Central Bank's International Operations Department.
Overseas credit card transactions, they currently, according to reports, are being raised from 2.5% to between 6 to 7% by some banks. I would like to know, is this a justifiable increase right now, and will the central bank be addressing this issue with them?
We will look at this with the International Operations Department, because this is, as he explained, it is relating to the foreign exchange transactions from the credit cards. So along with the International Operations Department, we'll have to take it up with the respective banks.
Sri Lanka stocks fell 0.99% today, ending a 3-session streak after the country's central bank reversed its monetary policy stance today. The Colombo All-Share Price Index lost 82.77 points to close at 8,260.08, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks fell 26.35 points to close at 3,047.07. Here's Dimantha Matthew with the market update for today.
Following the market crossing the 8,000 mark, that is the all-share price index crossing the 8,000 mark, we are starting to see a lot more volatility in the index. So last couple of days we saw the market surging up in the index where a lot of buying interest came in, but today we are seeing the market again in negative territory, that too down by around 82 points. So the spread of the gains and losses are pretty heavy, because yesterday we saw a bit closer to 200-point gain. So this gap is mainly because of the volatility that is currently there, which is creating a confusion among the investors. So beyond 8,000, we are seeing that the valuations on the index is slightly onto the expensive side. So with that, there is a lot more selling pressure than usual in the market, creating this sort of volatility.
The rupee today once again continued to be pegged at the same rate as yesterday of 202.89 cents against the US dollar. Now let's have a look at how the rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. In international news, as a result of the dreaded spread of the Delta variant across the world, cumulative COVID-19 cases have surpassed 208 million as of yesterday. The United States continued to lead the list of the highest cases per country, with 883,996 new cases reported in the past week alone.
The cumulative total of global COVID-19 cases rose to 208,470,375, with the death toll reaching 4,377,979 as of yesterday due to a worsening Delta outbreak, according to the World Health Organization. Compared to the data released on the previous day, 542,708 new confirmed cases and 6,700 new deaths were reported globally. The global number of new COVID-19 cases has been increasing for the last 2 months, as cases of the Delta variant have been reported in 148 countries, territories or areas, the WHO said in a weekly overview report issued yesterday. The United States continues to lead the world in the numbers of both confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths, reporting 883,996 new cases in the past week. The cumulative total of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country rose to 37,141,492 infections as of yesterday, with the death toll reaching 624,374, according to the Center for Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.